happened thanks to you folks. Thanks to you. Ernest Istook, former member of the House, I believe he's at the Heritage Foundation right now. He has a piece in the Washington Times from yesterday which is superb. He says, defunding Obamacare is tough politically, but it's not complicated, though even some want you to think so. Defunding is a simple idea surrounded by political jargon and doublespeak. If voters are convinced that the task is too complex, they might forgive politicians for not going all out to defund it. Defunding, in turn, is still second best to outright appeal. Excuse me. So he says, so here's an idiot's guide to defunding Obamacare. The title isn't intended to call anyone a dummy, but to stress this is not rocket science. Well, apparently it is rocket science to a lot of pseudo-conservatives who've been on the air and who write editorials. And to Karl Rove. He said, basics of a checking account. A checking account requires that you, 1, set up the account at the bank, 2, deposit money in the account up front and add more as needed, 3, write checks not to exceed your available balance. Automatic deposits are common, such as for paychecks or Social Security benefits. Automatic deposits are common to pay mortgages, rent, utility bills, and so on. It's less common to write post-dated checks. They can't be deposited right away, but when the due date arrives, recipients don't have to watch the mail for their checks. But unless the money is in the bank, a post-dated check will bounce just like any other. Now, if you follow this overview of checking accounts, then congratulations. You can understand how to defund Obamacare. Every federal program gets the equivalent of a banking account with the U.S. Treasury. When each year's spending bills are passed, called appropriations, then automatic monthly deposits are set in motion, coming from the Treasury. The program spends those funds, and the process repeats the following year. Normally, a program runs out of money at the end of the fiscal year, September 30. Without a new series of deposits, the program then halts. Sometimes there's money left over, but that's a different story. The rest of government shuts down without new funding, except for essential services like the military, Social Security benefits, and air traffic control. But Obamacare has its own unique exemption from a shutdown. In essence, Obamacare already was given 10 years of post-dated checks. Post-dated checks from the U.S. Treasury. The original legislation in 2010 guaranteed a decade's worth of money to cover its overhead and administrative costs. $105 billion through 2019. And here's his point. But the money has not been put in the checking account for Obamacare for the next 10 years. So Congress can say, no, we're not going to fund Obamacare. Even though the law says we are to fund it, we're not going to fund it. We wrote the law. These post-dated checks were intended to make it impossible for any future Congress to curtail the program, just in case the Democrats didn't keep full control of Congress after 2010, which they didn't. So, ladies and gentlemen, you've been hearing from these so-called people who worked in finances, in the Office of Managed Budget, in the Bush administration, people on TV, people who write, can't do this, can't defund it, the law says it's funded. Funded with what? There's no money in the checking account if Congress doesn't put it in there. I'll be right back.